And there's Holly. Who? Yes. Ed? That's odd, because we see you. Oh. Come on. That is so uncool, Ed. That is just not nice. And yeah, I imagine. Uh, okay. Mark said that he at the very end. I got an email about 15 minutes ago from Mark saying, "Is this video also?" And we're like, yeah. He says, "I'll be right back. I got to clean up." All right. All right. I'm gonna go kick us live. Yeah, just turn on your camera. It doesn't really come on. All right, I'm going to kick us live so we can get started. How's that? And then he can join us as we come in. All right, and here we go. Start the event. Yes. Slowly but surely. No, it's always been there. Swirly thing? No. Yeah. Oh. And it's just full of vinegar today. He's just. And. Oh. Yeah, I think so too. And I'm going to leave that to you guys. All right. We're live. Welcome, everyone, to. For the feisty crew. Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. Whoops, we lost Robert. There he is again. He's back. All right, This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, show number 85. I'm one of your many co-hosts today, Lauren Gray, coming to you live from St. Louis at the Hilton by the Ballpark in the Business Center. So the change of venue and the Mr. Rogers sweater. Actually, I already told everyone that's already in the Business Center if they want to photobomb the video, they can. So we're good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're going to have a little walk by because I'm actually in front of the glass. I wanted some backdrop, so I thought, hey, I'm going to make sure I get plenty of stuff moving. With me is the Mr. As ever. Won't you be my neighbor? Hey, look, my package from Colombia came in. Okay. All right. With me is the Mr. Feisty Edward St. Ange from Flipju, Mr. Tim Peter from Tim Peter and Associates, and Mr. Robert Cole from Rock Cheetah. And with us briefly, and then now disappearingly, was Ms. Holly Zoba from Signature Series Worldwide. We are, yes, she's going to make the grand entrance for us. We will be soon joined, I hope, by Mr. Mark, and please tell me his name better than I pronounce his last name. How do you say his last name best? Lomano? Lomano, thank you, because I was going to ask you that earlier. It's like, man, I hope I don't say that wrong. From Calibre Labs, who just recently released the second in a series of 3 segments of, there he is. Oh, and that reminds me, I'm going to make you all admins so that if I have to duck out or I get lost, then you guys can carry this stalwart on. There we go. We have a wonderful, and I stole that picture. It's hard to find a picture of Mark. He's done a very good job of not having too many pictures of himself on the internet. Oh, it, not that one, Morocco. Yes, it looks. Yay! Oh, microphone. Now we had to. The one that has, yeah. Yeah, there we are. I told you, not at all. Well, that's better than Robert, who we don't know what he's wearing really, or do we even know if he is? So that's all works out well. We're dressed upwards, which is all good. Okay. Does Cindy know you're hanging out with the riffraff? Does Cindy? I mean, yes. Now, as per what we had discussed beforehand, the first hour, half hour at the very least is yours to guide us through. We're going to taunt you from a distance and make funny faces as you say things, and then try to sound intelligent in between all of that in some capacity or other. But to that end, we would love to go over and let you take away with what you would be of most interest to talk about at first, and then we'll just drag you into the conversation we want to drag you into. You're up. Months in advance. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Meanwhile, we have a dartboard. We have a dartboard with pictures. Whatever you like. It's okay. Just ignore Ed at that point. Yeah. These days, it is. Yeah, I guess.
Demystifying the digital marketplace. And believe it or not, you know, the name this time, so that one was a distribution guide for hotels, which came out in 2012. So after co-authoring that, and then Cindy decided that she was going to go off and start her own company to start tracking, you know, net revenue metrics, because in the world that we live in, you know, the cost to get the customer in the door, as most of you know very well, has gotten frightfully expensive over the past 20 to 25 years. You know, so she asked me to come along and kind of help her. So I kind of do that as I am a partner and advisor, but I don't go to Rockville. I'm not full time in Rockville. I live in South Jersey, and go to Rockville to hang out there about every other week for a few days, and just to kind of help them execute on the strategy, you know, of what they're trying to do. So what Calibri's mission is like I said before, 20 years ago, traditional ADR and RevPAR metrics were a pretty good indicator of how effective an operator was, because there really wasn't a lot of intermediated business. It was basically, you know, the travel installations going through the GDS and some FIT wholesalers were the primary intermediaries, but they weren't a huge portion of the marketplace. Now you have a whole different world. So back in that prior world, 20, 25 years ago, on an industry-wide basis, the cost of customer acquisition was probably about 6 to 8% in general. You know, now that number is more like, on average, 16 to 18%, and for some independents and other properties, it can be as high as 25 to 30%. So now you have a situation where the just measuring the revenue side of the equation doesn't accurately give a true picture on how effective marketers and brands and owners are in getting the customer in the door. Because, like I said before, it used to be that primary competition for properties was competing properties. I mean, you know, if you were property A, you competed with property B across the street. Now you have a situation where the first level of competition is for people's eyes. So that's competition is with the major tech companies. You know, and it's evolving from the Expedias and Pricelines and Booking.coms of the world to Google and Apple and Facebook. And so now you have a situation where first you're competing for the eyes, and then once you get them in the door, you get them to stay your property, then you're competing for the experience. So then you're competing with it's an evolved situation. So if you only measure, you know, from a revenue standpoint, basically, if that's what your measure of your effectiveness is as a property, you kind of game the system a little bit. You know, you can drive that RevPAR through all kinds of mechanisms, through high-cost channels, and if that's how you're getting measured, you can do pretty well at that. But if you're the owner, you might take a different view of kind of how that's affecting you. And so, where Calibre is now is we have about 27,000 U.S. properties in the database, with a little over about 3.1 million rooms. So we have a pretty broad sample. And what we get from them is oversimplified, because it's a little more complicated than I'm going to describe. You get guest checkout record, absent the personal information about the guest. You guys were stayed at a hotel. We don't know you were there, but we know what you did. We don't know it was you, so you get the checkout record, and then along with that, we get the cost of the booking. So, for example, if it was through an OTA, what the OTA rate was with that property, with that brand for that point in time. Through the GDS, what the agreement it wasn't there, if it's brand.com, the associated channel costs with that, including loyalty costs. And we get the source of the book, so we know exactly where it came from. So now you have a mechanism where you can get a pretty holistic view, not only of the property's performance and the property's market mix and channel mix, but the entire, where the demand's coming from into the marketplace. So you can now create metrics that very much measure how effective somebody is. So, you know, in that realm, believe it or not, overcomplicating it, we've created 4 revenue metrics. The most common one is the one that everybody uses now, which is hotel collected ADR revenue. Mm-hmm. And that basically what shows up on the P&L. However, that revenue number doesn't accurately reflect what the guest pays, because there's still a lot of guests who use the traditional old merchant model or net model, where the intermediary keeps the commission prior to sending the ADR to the property. So just to give you an idea, that number in 2016 was about $3.5 billion of customer spend that never showed up on a hotel P&L. Right. So that's a pretty big number. And we estimate that $3.5 billion at a national level probably represents about $3 in national ADR. So ADRs from a customer spend standpoint are about $3 higher than currently reported. So pretty big number. And in some markets like New York, for example, where there's a high percentage of OTA business and an equally high percentage of that kind of merchant model OTA business, you know, that ADR is probably $7 or $8 higher in New York City than actually being reported. That doesn't mean New York's doing any better than people think that it is.
Yeah.
But it
No.
makes
No,
a,
no,
makes a
no.
huge
But
impact to business valuation.
sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point. So when you talk about business valuation, if you go back and we did this from the industry perspective and putting together a number that basically says, okay, let's look at guest paid revenue, let's look at hotel collected revenue, and let's start subtracting the cost of acquisition, which you can really broadly put into two categories. The first is the costs associated with directly with the transaction. So those would be fees, commissions, loyalty costs that you can directly track to that reservation. And then the second area of costs would be like traditional sales and marketing expense, which are more broad-based, buying keywords, doing advertising campaigns, marketing campaigns, which you then have to apply, probably, I'm not sure equally, but across all reservations.
Right.
So if you take those two cost components out and you look at the U.S. as a whole, that expenditure in those two cost categories was about $26 billion in spend by the hotels to capture the guests. So if you just do this quick math and saying, okay, how much do we have left after we pay for the guests? And we divide that by how much the guest pays, we define that as like a revenue capture number. And that revenue capture number in 2016 was 83.9%, which means the industry as a whole spent a little over 16% acquiring guests. Okay. Now, if you then look at that revenue capture number and you compare it to, let's just, for example, the prior year, 2015, the revenue capture was 84.4. Okay. So that means the industry was less effective in the most current year in bringing what the customer paid down to the bottom line. So if you just make a broad oversimplification assumption that if the performed in terms of acquiring the guest exactly the same in 16 as it had in 15, the industry would have had $760 billion more in revenues. Now, not 100% of that would go to the bottom line, but the majority of it would basically just shifting, where the customer is coming from. So, to the point you just made, if you then just apply an 8 cap, for example, on top of that number, that $760 million, the industry kind of lost is probably not the right word, but could have had $9 billion higher.
Or incorrectly accounted for.
Right, or just less
Missed out on.
It was $9 billion in asset value that was kind of just went away. So if you actually work with that revenue capture number, you can pretty much, if you track that, you can pretty much identify where some opportunities are and how you can basically just increase the value of the property, not by doing much of anything. You can basically end up with the same RevPAR, shift your mix a little bit, and have a highly more profitable and valuable property, which is kind of what we're hoping to create as an ongoing way to look at your metrics in addition to the traditional metrics. Because the traditional ones are good and valuable, and not everybody's going to be able to do the level of detail that is necessary. But at the same time, everybody, it's going to be really good to understand that.
So quick question on your difference you saw year over year. I mean, statistically, that's not a widespread difference. I mean, what is the margin of error in reporting? Like, are we really looking at, because I mean, that seems like a pretty close number on what is still pretty, rough math, because the industry's not tracking this very well, and you guys are trying to get your arms around it. So so someone who's listening to this or reads the report, I mean, are they really slipping backwards?
They're absolutely slipping backwards.
Okay, and is it by more possibly than what you're seeing, or?
I suspect at an industry level it probably is more, because our sample of independents is relatively small. So when you make that observation, like our like other data collectors, our branded chain affiliated property numbers are pretty darn good. We have, like I said, 27,000 hotels. Branded hotels is a pretty good number. It's probably on a universe of in the low 30s, 32,000, 33,000. So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good number. And it's across all categories. So the brand number is pretty accurate. With the independent number, like everybody else has TR and Travel Book have to do, you got to do some estimation because not a lot of people are participating in that. So my guess would be that we probably the revenue capture on an industry-wide basis not overestimated. That would be my best guess because of the independents still represent about 29% of the room supply in the U.S. and they tend to be much more reliant on the more expensive channels like the OTAs and the brands do. So now, to your question that it doesn't really slip that much. Actually, if you're thinking that it went from 84.4 to 83.9, and each basis point or tenth of a percent is probably worth 160, 100. It's a pretty big number. So, and then if you take that down, you think about it at a property level, let's say like a larger property, 500 room hotel, you start moving that revenue capture by a tenth or 2%, you're talking about $100,000. It's not going to take much for you to kind of get to make that a meaningful number. Now, if you're a 50 room side of the road motel charging, $50 a night, probably not going to have that much impact, honestly. But
so what can independent properties watching this? What can they do to help make your data better?
Other than participate, you mean?
But how do they participate?
How do they participate? Yeah.
But no, it's just a little bit challenging. Now it's not that there's a flip side of this if you're an independent, and the flip side is you don't have the associated brand fees.
Right.
So if you're a branded property, you have kind of two groups of fees. You have the fees associated with the brand, and then your acquisition costs through independent third party. So if you're an independent, your acquisition cost to the customer through the independent third parties can be a little bit higher because you don't have those associated brand fees. So let's say a brand works out a deal with an OTA of a 12% commission on the booking. For an independent, you can be as high as 20% and probably still be in the same kind of acquisition standpoint because you don't have the franchise fees and the reservation fees and all those other fees that are associated with it. You'll still have,
well, architecturally, I mean, some of those fees they will have, because they're, instead of paying it to the brand, they're paying it to Sabre or TravelClick or
Right.
SHR, and inside of those, I mean, so they still, and actually that's an interesting exercise in itself is to look at your cost of getting this reservation and then, also not to slip into the mistake of, I work directly with them. It doesn't go through my systems. Yeah, but you're getting your reservations via email and fax. And so you're putting human time into processing that. There's a cost to a transaction.
There's a cost of labor, right?
Every transaction has a cost. Even if they walk in the door, there's a cost. I mean, it's not as much, which brings me to another interesting finding from part 2 of the study, which just got released about 2 weeks ago. Was it last week or the week before? I don't remember. Is that people were much more quickly embracing the digital channels, which is not a surprise, but the rapidity with which it's actually accelerating is astounding. From 2014 to 2016, the change is dramatic. In other words, in 2014, about 35% of all hotel bookings came through a digital channel. Digital channel defined as GDS, OTA, or brand.com. Okay, and so 35% in 2014. By 2016, the number went to 42%. So that's a huge change in 2 years. Now now remembering that there's about 3 million rooms booked a day. So now you're talking about a net change in behavior of like 140,000 rooms a day in how people are booking.
I missed the very, very beginning of that. Will you say that again? Hi, I'm
Nice to meet you, Holly. Nice picture behind you too.
She changes it by seasonally. We've discovered.
She lives in a museum.
And for those of you who don't know, Robert and Tim are actually sitting in the same room.
We're actually looking at one another right over the camera. Hi, Robert. Next time you're on, can you grab me a Diet Coke?
The background doesn't look similar, I must say.
I'm just Sam and Lauren aren't wearing identical clothing, which they seem to coordinate their,
They always
their
wear the
outfits.
same
Wait,
normally.
I'm gonna get my picture in the background. There you go.
There you go.
Very nice. You gonna play us a tune? You gonna play?
Oh, well, now he will.
He has no idea. He's not. It gives him a little, kind of. It's part of.
Yeah, exactly. I heard it would help me meet chicks.
That's how. That's how Springsteen got into it.
Exactly. So anyway,
Well, I'm gonna let that one go.
See what you started?
Question of Mark, and then we went way down a rabbit hole. Go ahead, Holly.
Let me do that again. So in 2014, about 35% of all hotel bookings came through a digital channel, which is broadly defined as GDS, brand.com, or OTA. In 2016, that number went from 35% to 42%, which is a huge, I mean, any number.
At what other channels expense, just out of curiosity?
Sorry?
Voice.
Was it at the expense of voice only, or?
Actually, voice was relatively flat. It was almost exclusively at the expense of Property Direct, which is, kind of a catch-all when you walk in the front
Yeah.
door or just, call the Property Direct.
But here's the thing: a lot of the properties that I deal with, when Property Direct happens, they're putting it through their digital, like they're using their booking it, the book it, like.
We can, well,
Do you?
yeah, we have some interesting codes, so in other words, if somebody makes a reservation through TripAdvisor, book directly on TripAdvisor, then it comes through to us as brand.com. There's a code that says, nice try. It's not really brand.com. That intermediary. And so about that, so.
And are you seeing Mark in one of the things that used to be true? So we play a little game of bingo.
Yep.
Properties, right? And we had a line around the office all the time about the fact that most of the people who are staying with us tonight, so it's noon on the East Coast right now,